Good afternoon to everybody. Here we go with another remote media session. I guess the last one was season ending, and we're approaching the draft and the start of a season. It's been very, very busy, and we're excited. Primarily, my understanding is we'll end up talking a lot about, the draft process, but you're free to ask, any kind of question that you'd like to ask, and I'll do my best to answer it as honestly as I can. So, as you know, today's Friday. We have the draft next Wednesday, and it's been moved back twice. This time we think we got it for real. So we're with our scouts. Some of them are remote. Some of them have driven in. Our staff is here. And we're doing a combination, a hybrid of, remote working and participating in person. Been very busy, with the league still, ironing out details as to, the next week or two. Before we know it, we're going to be in training camp. And on top of that, before we know it, we'll be looking at and working on the draft in 21, which I'm hopeful will put us back on schedule, as it's always been. And that's just around the corner. So that just gives you a feel, for how busy it is and how quickly, the season will be here, and then the end of the season, and then working on the 21 draft. So having said that, welcome to everybody, and I do the best I can to answer your questions.
We'll start with that. We'll open up to questions from there. So if you could just, go in the chat and we'll call on you. Steve Goldberg, we'll start with you.
Hi, just had to unmute there. Hi, Mitch. Hope everybody here is doing well. How do you see Denny Avdia as an NBA player? Do you think he'll make an immediate impact?
Well, I got to be a little careful, right? The draft hasn't taken place yet. So I don't want to overdo it and I don't want to underdo it because, we have the third pick and we have the 32nd pick. I have scouted him personally, and I think he has a chance to be a fine NBA player. Like most of the players that are coming out, they're very young. 19 and 20 years old. So it's tough to project, how good they'll be 3 years from now. That is our job. But typically, if you work hard and you've got some God-given skills, you will get better. And I think that's the case with Denny.
Thank you.
We'll go to Rick Bonnell.
Hey, Mitch.
Hey, Rick.
You have said in the past, that talent needs to guide this principle. I wondered if now that you're close to it, I wondered to what extent, is that 100% true? Under what circumstances would position carry it all into the third pick? And I'm also curious if you have any interest in trading for Russell Westbrook's contract since this has come up in the last day.
Okay. We're not good enough to draft, by position. Our team is young. The players are developing. Even Terry, although he's been in the league several years, he's still a developing player. And I thought he made a step forward in the minicamp. I thought he looked really good. Now, that remains to be seen. But he's one of our veterans, and I think he's still got some upside. Clearly, the guys younger than him, the PJs and the Miles and the Martin brothers and Devontae, I would like to think that they get better too. But, we're not good enough right now, to win a bunch of games, to get into the playoffs and to advance. I'm not sure if that's the case next year, but it was the case this past year. And I did think, that we were playing our best basketball at the very end. So to answer your question, we are going to have to draft for the best player that we feel could be, a 10, 12-year starter in this league, and pretty much regardless of position. I think we've got a lot of players that are young, even Cody Zeller, at his position at center. But we need to upgrade every position. And going from 8 to 3, I think gives us an excellent chance to get that player. So, long-winded answer. I hope I answered it. Your other question, Rick, you've been around long enough to know that I can't comment, on other teams' players, and I'll take that position, today. You're seeing, and you will see, a lot of stories that get leaked. As you know, most of the time, they're rumors that go nowhere. And that's the kind of year it is. That's the time of year it is right now. So we're active. We're talking to teams. We're looking for ways to improve our team. But, obviously I can't comment on other teams' players.
Sam Perley from Hornets.com.
Hey, Mitch, thanks for joining us. Knowing this is your third draft with the team and having a little bit more financial flexibility, plus a high draft pick, third pick, and a high pick in the second round as well, how does the excitement of this draft and what you guys can do compare to the first 2 drafts that you've had with the organization and ensuing free agency period as well?
Well, this is a different year. I mean, it's a draft that was supposed to take place in June. It was moved once, I believe, to October, and then it was moved again. And a lot of what we're doing is remote. We've been doing remote Zoom calls since March. So although it's remote and very different, we're very used to it. After all the months we spent, practicing and doing it. Having said that, the third pick is a great place to be picking from. We're also excited about our 32nd pick. And then we've got the 56th pick. That was unexpected. We've got it, and it has value. We'll see, who's left, who's available. I do expect that we'd use all 3 picks. Lots of conversations, about moving up, moving back, not only with the third pick, but also with the 32nd pick. And a lot of what takes place, like any negotiation, most of the time it goes down to the wire. So you're seeing, and you'll hear a lot more in terms of speculation, probably between now and Monday or Tuesday, and then things will get pretty serious.
Thank you.
Josh Sims.
Hey, Mitch, appreciate the time. For you guys in the evaluation process, how difficult was that given the circumstances of what we're in with this pandemic? And do you feel like there's going to be a lot of unknowns with guys not having a combine or not having just general normal workouts to figure out who will actually kind of pan out as a pro this year?
Yeah. The process is a little bit more challenging this year than it's been in years past. In particular, gathering medical. It's always been a problem, because players can opt out of Chicago. If they're in Chicago, then they have to take a physical. Okay, there's no Chicago this year, although there is a pre-draft combine that's being done virtually. And participation probably has been less than in years past. And what that means is you have a lot of players out there that did not participate in the NBA Combine. Therefore, you've got to secure the physical information. And most of the time, the agents, get a physical with a doctor that's very reliable, and that information is shared amongst everybody. There are times when the agents don't share it. Okay, and that's their right to try to manipulate the draft. That's what they do. They represent their players. So that's been a little bit more challenging than in years past. I do feel the virtual part of the process has gone very well. Like I said, we've been doing it since March. The other thing that I'm sure you're aware of, the NBA 3 weeks ago allowed teams to begin visiting players, 10 players, a maximum, and we had to go to see the players. So to some degree, that's been an added bonus that's allowed us to further evaluate the players, something we didn't have 3 weeks ago. And I will say that of the 10 visits, we've used all 10.
Let's go to Chris Lee.
Hi, Mitch. Thank you for your time today. I'm Chris Lee from WRAL in Raleigh, North Carolina.
Sure.
I wanted to ask more about, I guess, with the G League kind of being in flux, and we're not sure if things are gonna kind of happen with that. And you guys have been very liberal in using it the last couple of years to really develop players. Do you feel like in this draft you need to draft players who are a little bit more ready to play instead of folks who may be a project or guys that you may need to develop because you may not have that opportunity to develop them this year?
Well, I will tell you that at number 3, we'll probably end up drafting somebody who's 19 or 20. Okay, that's just the nature, of the NBA with the one and dones today. At 32, there's more of a likelihood that we would draft somebody that's a 4-year player. And at 56, it's hard to speculate, who might be there. It's very possible our third pick spends some time in the G League. It's not something that happens often in this league. When we interview the players, we ask them their feeling about the G League, and they've all indicated that it's something that they would do if we thought it was in the best interest of their development. Now, if I had to handicap the third pick being at the G League, I would probably say 70-80% he would not. Okay. But I can't say with certainty that we wouldn't, use that as an opportunity to develop him further. There's only 72 games this year, less preseason games than there've been in years past. So the tools that we have to develop players are a little mitigated this year. Maybe 32 would spend time in Greensboro, and certainly 56, if we draft an American player, would spend some time in the G League as well. The G League has been really good to us the last couple of years. It's a tough league to play in. The players play extremely hard. Most are likely times they're 28, 29 years old, and you throw a young kid down there who's 19, 20, 21, you're going up against, grown men, who are fighting to get into the NBA. So it's a tough league, and we've used it to develop our players. 2 years ago, of course, Devontae, and then I think last year, we spent Bacon, we spent McDaniels, the Martin brothers, and we've gotten good results. So it's our plan to continue. Now, the downside to that, when we mandate that we play our younger players, is that you don't win as many games as you do against teams that are fielding players in their late 20s. So that's a downside to doing that. And we'd like to win games, in the G League and also develop players. But if it comes down to one or the other, we're going to, use the G League to develop players, and hopefully at the same time, create a fan base that enjoys watching Hornet players that go up and down and win some games. But winning games is not the priority. We'd like to win games, of course, but the most important thing is to develop players for the Hornets.
Thank you.
Rick, we'll go back to you.
Hey, Mitch, I thought it was really interesting the other day when JB talked about, what it's going to be like in this very compact situation where basically you're going from having the draft to going through free agency to starting a training camp in a little over 2 weeks. I just wondered from your perspective, and particularly since you've gone through some, lockouts, how do you think that will affect everything you have to do in a season when, obviously you have a really high pick and you have significant cap room?
Well, everybody's got to go through the same thing we do. All 30 teams, have to deal with, the same challenges. And yes, you're right. I've been through a couple of lockouts, and one day there's, almost nothing going on. And then the next day, you read about a deal and about the season starting in 3 weeks, and, here we go, right? We're off to the races. And that's the case this year. You just, as we've learned in the last, or I hope we've learned in the last 9 months, you can no longer say, well, this is not how it used to be, or I'm not used to doing it this way. We can't do that. We wake up in the morning and we have to be flexible and roll with the punches. And that's what we have to do, not only, with health and safety and our world as is today, but it's also, our challenges going forward. If this is what we have to do, then we just got to do it. And by past experience, I know we can do it. Somehow you get through it. It will be a very busy and challenging, 2 or 3 weeks. And the visits that we've made with players in the last 2 or 3 weeks, a couple of them have asked us, well, what can they expect? And I've walked them through, what your next 2 or 3 weeks could look like. Like all they've been doing for the last 6 months is working out by themselves. Okay, guess what? There's going to be a draft. There'll be the excitement of virtual interviews, and then you have to negotiate a contract, and then hopefully that goes smoothly. And now you got to get to Charlotte or another city. You got to get a place to live. You got to get a car. You got to sign a contract. You got to get a physical when you get here. You're going to go into training camp, maybe with no days in between signing a contract and beginning camp. We used to sign a contract the first week of July, right? Go to summer league for 2 weeks, have another 2 months off. The players come into town 3 or 4 weeks before camp, and you kind of just, ease into training camp. It's not going to be that way this year. And we will get through it. I don't think that's going to be a problem. The players, they'll adapt. They're young. They don't know what other players have done, and they'll get through it too. But it will be a challenge, and it is going to come and go quick.
Will the compacted schedule affect the way that free agency works at all, based on your experience?
What do you mean?
Well, it seemed like, I remember from covering 2 lockouts, it seemed like when everything got compacted, it seemed like deals, there was not the sort of, a couple of days of signings, and then the market would level off, and people knew that there were still 8 to 12 weeks before everything had to come to terms. I just wondered if you thought compacting all this into 2 weeks, until training camp would have an effect on the marketplace.
Something, Rick, we're going to learn something as a team and as a league, just like I think we learned something, with the play-in tournament in the mini bubble, something that nobody expected this league to go through this year, right? Nobody expected it. There had been talk about, abbreviating or doing something mid-season or, but we never went anywhere. Okay. And then this year, because of the pandemic and the bubble, people had to look at the world a little bit differently, and they had to adjust to it. And something we learned, I think that was a good thing, something to look at going forward. So I do feel that the free agent period this year, that there may be more urgency associated with it. I think we have a day and a half of a moratorium, and I think in years past it's been a little bit longer. So yeah, there's not going to be as much time as there was in between to negotiate and so to speak, flesh out what might be true and what might not be true. And that could be a little dangerous, right? You have to make quicker decisions. But every GM is in the same position. So yeah. But you know something, looking back on it 6 months from now, we'll probably have learned something from the process, and maybe we could incorporate it going forward.
We'll go to Jason and then Jack. So Jason Huber, go ahead.
Hey, Mitch. Jason Huber here with radio.com. I'm wondering, I know we've talked here now about the G League and the compact season. Is there any, possibility that you could be in a situation where with just a few weeks between the draft to play, and that whoever you draft, may not have as big of an impact early on because of the short time to adjust to the team, adjust to the league? Is there any scenario that you could see that possibly happening?
Are you talking about number 3?
Yeah, number 3. And I mean, yeah, basically number 3, since, you mentioned younger guys, the later picks may take time.
Yeah. I think, I handicapped it, a little bit earlier. But yes, I think it is very possible. In years past, you'd make that draft selection at the end of June. You go to summer league, and you'd have 3 months to get ready for veterans camp. And in those 3 months, at a young age, when you're 19 or 20, you get better quickly if you work, versus later on. Those are the years you really can improve quickly, and most players do from June, to November of the following year. The players that I've talked to, they're bored. They can't play against anybody. They're in a gym going 1-on-0. Some of them have a trainer, some of them don't. And basically, what can you do in a gym by yourself? You just kind of shoot, right? You go up and down the court, you handle the ball a little bit, and you're dying to play. And you're probably not in great shape. So, yeah, there is some concern, even at number 3, although I would, like I said, handicap it that, a player at number 3 should be able to play maybe quicker than somebody at 8 or 10. But the option is still there. We may end up, erring on the side of caution if somebody's not in great shape, right? If we feel development-wise in terms of minutes. And, a lot of times for a kid, a month in the G League could feel like forever. But the reality is, when they come out of it and they've got another 6 months of the season, they look back on it and it wasn't forever. It felt like it was forever, but it really wasn't. And they've gotten better. And they look back on it and they say, hey, that was good for me. But, those are all things that remain to be seen. I feel really comfortable with our 3 picks. Having 3 picks, it kind of forces you to know the whole draft, right? If you just had number 3, then you really concentrate on the top 10 or 12. And if you just have 3 and 32, then you just concentrate on the top 40. But when you got 3 picks, at range, that our picks range, you spend a lot of time looking at the top 86 players, which is what we've done. We've got 85, 86 players, and that's a lot. But it's been challenging, and our group, Larry Jordan leads the group. I feel confident, based on what they've done in years past, with the drafts that they've done, that we're going to understand and know this draft, 1 through 80, 85.
Jack, we'll go to you.
Hey, Mitch, Jack Dovey here. You said a few minutes ago that your team will always be active with high-profile players around the league being on the move. So do you think your young team right now is ready to bring on a star-caliber player, or do you think it's more wise to continue to build your roster organically from the ground up?
I'm not sure I said exactly what you said, okay? I think what you said is that I said we will always be active with high-profile players. Did I say
or just
that?
active with players being on the move. Do you think your team's kind of ready to bring in a star player? Or do you want to continue to
Yes, yeah, I did say that. This time of year, you know, in fact, just on this call, I see that 2 general managers tried to call me. This time of year, it's our job to reach out and talk to teams and get a feel for what they will and will do. It's a big poker game. It's a big puzzle. It's a big chess match. You know, some of the reports that are released are accurate and some of them aren't. But it is my job to research, you know, to take every call from every general manager. 90%, 95% of the time, there's really not much to discuss. But it is my job to do that. It is my job to look for opportunities to use our assets, which right now are our picks and our cap room flexibility going forward. You know, those are our biggest assets, you know, right now. Making a trade, I would hope to be able to do something like that. Of course, that's the last way, you know, that you can improve a team. So, yes, I hear what you're saying. You know, does it make sense to add, you know, a big-time veteran player? At first glance, you might say no. But it is my job to research, you know, every opportunity. And if it's something that I feel that needs to be pursued, I'll pursue it and bring it to ownership.
Cool. Well, thanks everyone. We're gonna have to end it there just because of Mitch's time, and I want him to be able to call back those GMs in a timely fashion too. So, but no, thanks for everyone's time joining us. Mitch, appreciate your time as well. We'll be in touch, everyone, with regards to draft night and kind of what we got going on at that time as well. So appreciate everyone's time. Have a great afternoon and a good weekend.
Thanks
for
Mitch.
everything, Mark.